Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, I do have a trade to go through this week, some shorts on Aussie dollar. Quickly go over my trade and then progress into the analysis shortly after. So if there is a particular pair you want to skip ahead to, feel free to do so using the timestamps below. But as I said, I've got some shorts which I'm still currently holding. I did close it on my prop firm challenge. If you haven't checked out the first episode to that yesterday, it's the most recent video on my channel. Make sure you go check it out. But in my personal account, I'm still holding this trade here back down to the low. So that's the full target of the trade. I'm still hanging on to the position, already banked some partials, and went to break even at 1R, so around about there. We are approaching some support. Of course, we'll do some analysis on Aussie dollar, what I expect to happen going into next week. But yeah, I'm still holding it into a push into these daily, weekly swing lows down here. So that's the trade that I took this week. Only one position, but I'm happy with it. So yeah, let's go into Euro USD. So next week is looking pretty interesting. I'm still bearish on these dollar pairs, so Euro USD, Aussie dollar, of course, pound USD, NZD USD, dollar CAD I see going up as well. So the narrative for myself is still dollar strength until proven otherwise. Of course, if things change, I will change my bias. I'm not being stubborn, but in terms of the analysis I've done, everything is still looking pretty bearish. So for Euro USD going into next week, I'm still expecting more downside. Again, we are still forming these consistent lower lows and lower highs here, and I am looking for another one to be printed and another move to the downside. We are kind of trading in this longer term bearish channel, if you will, connecting these lower highs here. So 1, 2, 3, and if I actually just clone it, we can create a nice channel here. So we've got the extremes over there, so that's a high of the channel, and this is the low of the channel. You can see the market has tested it numerous times here, but recently we have actually broken through the channel. So the market has been exceptionally bearish, and of course the trend line didn't hold. We did kind of puncture underneath the trend line a couple of times, but since then we have recovered and now coming back to the highs of the channel. So I'm looking to see if we can have one more push to the upside, test the extremes of the channel, basically the upper trend line, and if we can see some nice rejection from this 1.06400 level, I can anticipate more downside. We also are rejecting a very nice level on the daily chart, which is this broken level of support, now turned resistance as well, which we rejected last week. So as you can see, we came up into that area, nice rejection. So potentially could come back into the same area, retest the high from last week, and then possibly see a nice sell-off from that upper trend line. If we do break through this, that's when I probably will fold my arms and say, okay, Euro USD is probably bullish, because at that point, we're breaking back above a substantial daily level, and at that point as well, we're starting to print in some nice bullish structure, low, high, higher low, higher high. So at that point, I'll be more inclined to look for buys and follow a reversal. So if Euro USD does just explode to the upside and break past this big level of daily resistance at 1.066, so if you just see a big impulse move breaking through, that's when I will scrap the bearish bias. Again, not jumping into long straight away, but if you do see some nice corrections, I get the confluences I'm looking for, I will possibly look for some longs in the opposite direction. But of course, that move hasn't happened yet. We're still respecting the channel, so I'm still anticipating more downside next week for a push back down to the swing lows, which is, let me just remove this out of the way, tidy up the charts a little bit. So a push back down to the swing low, which is this area here, trading at 1.04500. So that is still the plan for Euro USD. Like I said, I'm still bearish on these dollar pairs. So if you can see a nice rejection, just a simple double top into a strong area of confluence, if you can see some nice rejection in this area, some nice confirmation candles, some shorts will be looking good. Risk to wall looks pretty good as well. And again, targets can be these lows. You can look to target these lows here, depending how far you want to take the trade. But from a swing perspective, I am looking at price pushing back into the lows there on the left, and possibly some new lows as well. So that'll be the plan next week for Euro USD. Okay, so on to dollar yen. So dollar yen still pretty bullish, but again, very corrective, running out of steam. Again, for me personally, I'm not really interested in the price action for dollar yen because number one, it's still very corrective, not really seeing much momentum anymore. So it does look like from a trend perspective, we're starting to see some characteristics that show exhaustion, that show that the market is tiring, and that's not really a trend that I want to jump into. I want to jump into trends that are showing a lot of life, showing a lot of momentum as well, very impulsive. Those are the trends I want to jump into, not ones that are showing opposite characteristics, and that's what dollar yen is showing. But not just that, also the levels we are approaching, 150, not only just a big psychological level where we might see some big reactions from, but we are approaching this level of resistance here on the left, which is where we started this huge downtrend from back in late 2022, actually about a year ago right now. So we're at some really significant prices for dollar yen. So in terms of being a trend trader, following the trend, I still am bullish because that's where the market structure is. We're still seeing higher highs and higher lows across pretty much all the time frames. So I definitely am a bullish. I definitely have a bullish bias in this particular market structure. But do I want to buy? No. I'm looking for other markets that show me a lot better opportunities, and those markets will have my undivided attention. Unlike dollar yen, which I'm still waiting for either just a big breakout. If we do that and see some more momentum come back into it, then I'll consider some longs and continuations. Or if we do see a reversal like we saw here, some nice break of structure, some low lows and lower highs, then I'll be interested. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for dollar yen. As long as this kind of messy price action continues, I'm not really interested in jumping into anything. So for dollar yen, I'm waiting for a big push past 150, maybe into 151. Then I'll start considering some pullbacks and retracements and keep an eye for some retests of some structure, continuing that trend, because we are still pretty bullish. We are still printing all of these higher lows here. So, I would expect that trend to continue, but let's first see some life come back into it. Or on the other hand, if we do start breaking some structure to the downside, start seeing some lower lows and lower highs, I'll be keen for some break and retest, because again, we did reverse from this price last year. We could see that reversal happen again potentially. So if we do start seeing some lower lows and lower highs, I will consider shorting if I see the necessary bearish structure. And again, targets can just be to these price swing points depending on the setup itself. But yeah, I'm quite neutral. Just getting ready for price to make its move, whether we're going to break to the upside or break to the downside. I'm just waiting for price to make its move. But these prices, I do not want to touch dollar yen. Of course, Bank of Japan can intervene at any time as well. As we've seen in the past here, price approached 150 for the first time in about a year. Huge reaction. We did see another reaction not too long ago. So, we could see more of the same thing as well. So it's just a bit touchy in these areas with dollar yen. So I do want to point that out to you guys. But if you do see some opportunities, it's because we broke through structure, saw some nice momentum come back again. Then we'll look for some retest, or we're looking at some reversals to the downside. So that's the best I've got going into next week for dollar yen. Okay, so dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I actually really like the price action with dollar CAD going into next week. This one will definitely make the watch list for myself. Again, still bullish on dollar CAD, bullish on dollar. So I do still see a lot more upside for dollar CAD. I'm looking at a push back into the resistance over here, 1.39. So that's still longer term where I see dollar CAD heading towards. And it does look like we are starting to break and hold above this key resistance, which I wasn't too sure if we'll break above this week or respect it or reverse from it. I did say this kind of the big obstacle. If price does start breaking through, then I can anticipate more upside, or at least be more confident with my upside prediction. So we are starting to break above these areas here as well. And if we drop to the full H time frame, it also looks like we're having a break and retest of this high here on the left as well. As you can see, some nice resistance once, twice, a third time, and now looks like we're holding as support. This would actually be in a nice long position to actually jump into at the back end of this week, but it occurred pretty late on Friday, and I wasn't really interested in jumping to any more positions. We got some confirmations around 4 or 5 p.m. so a little bit late there, but nonetheless, if my bias is correct, if we are moving back to the highs here, there's still a pretty long way to go. If I measure it, we still got about 170 odd pips there to the upside, and we've got a nice first target to aim for. So for dollar CAD next week, what I'll be looking for is to see if we can keep this bullish trend going, see if we can keep these higher highs and higher lows going. We are seeing some nice momentum come back into dollar CAD as well. So those are some real powerful signs that the buyers are starting to take control. So either looking for a retest of the high here and then getting into some buys accordingly, and looking for push back into the target at 1.388, Or if you want to get into the trade a little bit earlier, then you can probably consider looking for some buys probably early Monday if we can come back and retest the same zone, and look for some buys in the retest of 1.37, because like we said, it is a pretty nice level that the market is now holding. And of course, we are still keeping up with our higher lows here. We had a big fake out to the downside, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago. And since then, the market is now back producing more higher lows as well. So if you can come back and hold that support level, looks good, or just keep trending, break and retest, simple market structure, and continue the trend. Also, watch out for the high there. That could be a nice place to bank partials, go break even. But well and truly, my next major target will be, back at the high there on that daily swing high. So yeah, that's the plan next week for dollar CAD. Like I said, I really like the price action, seeing consecutive higher highs and higher lows. So yeah, onwards and upwards for next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound bullish bias for myself, big move to the upside, taking out the highs there, some confident price action. Euro Pound is looking better. It's not the most convincing chart in the world. Again, it's still not going to make my watch list for next week. But I have to admit the price action is getting a little bit better. We are starting to see the market trend to the upside now. We've got some consistent higher highs and higher lows. It looks like the market may be starting to break out the consolidation. I wouldn't say the breakout is so crystal clear, because we've got the wick high there and we've only just about cleared it. So it's not the most convincing breakout of this kind of consolidation we've been in about for about a couple of months now. But it's showing signs of possibly a breakout of this kind of bowl shaped pattern there. So I'm anticipating more upside for Euro Pound. Like I said, it probably won't make my watch list, or I know it won't make my watch list, but nonetheless, if we do see some pullbacks into these areas, I do think there could be some nice buying opportunities. Simply just trade it back to highs again and anticipate the next higher low, 1, 2, 3, and possibly a fourth, retesting some nice structure there on the left, that prior swing high at 0.866. So if you're looking at Euro Pound, keep an eye on the retest of this area of confluence. Again, we're still seeing impulse, correction, impulse. So you can get another correction, simple push back to the high, possibly higher as well if the trend does really start to expand and Euro Pound does break out. But again, the market as a whole, especially in the higher time frame, is still pretty choppy for my liking. So my attention will be on other pairs. But if you're looking at Euro Pound, keep an eye on this area for a nice break and retest and some buys back to the relative swing high on the 4H. Okay, so Aodu USD up next. Everything is pretty bearish for this one. Of course, I'm currently holding a short on my personal account, so I am still expecting more downside for Aussie dollar. So with next week's price action in mind, I am looking for a push still again into the low here around the 0.62 area. And again, we're still seeing consistent lower lows and lower highs and pretty much all the major time frames, monthly, weekly, daily, 4H as well. So everything is pretty much in sync with Aussie dollar, which is why I was a bit more aggressive with my take profit with this particular trade, because we have so much synchronicity with the higher time frames. There's a good chance we'll just see that kind of final push to the downside, coming back into that 0.62 into the weekly, swing low there. And if you expand the weekly as well, you can see the consistent lower highs. So we do have a pretty good possibility the market will come back and test that low, possibly even break through and see some new lows. But for next week, I think the analysis is pretty straightforward. You can see we're starting to shape up with a nice bearish trend here. High, low, high, equal lows, but eventually I'm expecting something like this to happen. Break the structure, retest, continuation, and come into that 0.62 area. So that's the plan going into next week with Aussie dollar. So pretty clear price action. You can also see with the way the market is moving, the bearish price action is a lot more impulsive and the bullish moves are very corrective, which is a good sign from a trend perspective, because you can see this is where all the momentum lies. This is where all the momentum lies, momentum there as well. And these moves here are quite corrective, which is showing that the buyers are having a tough time trying to reverse price, if you will. So if we can get a nice break of this level here, I think that's where we see the bearish momentum really kick in. And yeah, nice simple break and retest, catch the lower high, and then look for a push to the low on the daily and the weekly time frame, just around 0.62. So for me, that's kind of a no-brainer there, just waiting for the breakout and waiting for some sells. Not interested in buys whatsoever. For me to consider buys, of course, knock me out my trade, but I need these structural lower highs to be taken out completely. then I'll consider looking at longs. But at the moment, only focusing on more downside and nice break and retest of that low. So yeah, keep an eye on break and retest of 0.62800 and some sales back down to 0.62 next week. Okay, so NZD CAD up next. So still very bearish on this particular market. Again, multiple time frames point to the downside. This is the daily time frame, by the way. As we can see, a long-term bearish channel in play. I was actually looking for a bit more upside a couple of weeks ago. Didn't quite see it into this particular area, but nonetheless, the market is still giving us these consistent lower highs. Another one there. So I am looking at price printing some new lows past this point here as well. So the plan pretty much is looking for pullbacks, looking for rallies, and then looking to short them essentially. Of course, fitting the plan, finding confluence is not just shorting anywhere and everywhere, but precisely at the areas that have high probability. But in terms of the direction we want to be trading, yeah, definitely to the downside for NZD CAD. So I'm looking at this area here as well. We had a nice breaking retest briefly last week as well, but we've had a pretty big move to the downside since the high there was created. So I want to see a kind of a bigger pullback for NZD CAD, come back and retest that same area, then look for another sell-off, possibly take out some of these weaker lower highs here on the lower time frames, grab some liquidity above those highs there, retest the structure, of course broken support, will now return resistance, and of course go and take out the lows there on the left. So that's the plan for NZD CAD, pretty straightforward. Again, in terms of the trend, the market structure, it's all very clear in my eyes anyway. So I'm expecting more downside for NZD CAD next week. I think there's a good chance we probably will see some new lows. Of course, we're not too far away from the swing lows, so there is that possibility we could just open up the market bearish and just see the market roll over on Monday. So it's kind of, you know, if we do pull back, then the short setups will arise. If the market just maintains this bearish momentum and falls over, unless you're looking in the lower time frames like 30-minute or 50-minute, it might be a trade that has already left the station. But if we do see the pullback, keep an eye on 0.80600. This is a nice level to short from. Of course, waiting for some confirmations and targets back down at that swing low. So that is the plan next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So big move to the upside this week, which we were anticipating. Difficult to find some entries because the pullbacks were quite shallow. As you can see, quite shallow pullbacks there. A lot of momentum present for pound NZD this week to the upside, but nonetheless the direction was pretty spot on. But I do think there's more upside. So even though not really giving us a good chance to get into the market this week, I think eventually we might find a nice opportunity at some stage. But looking at the weekly chart, we've got a really nice rejection of this high here. As you can see, resistance once, twice, a third time as well, briefly a fourth. But this is essentially a big level, because this is kind of what kept the market ranging for about 2019 to mid 2023. So, you know, over 4 years, we're kind of just ranging between these two levels. Well, that level there, and if I clone that and bring that to the downside, more or less this level here as well. So it looks like we are breaking out. This was COVID, so this is kind of like a big fake out. Of course, a lot of volatility during those times. Market came straight back in. This time we're coming back for a successful retest, for nice bullish engulfing a couple weeks back. So potentially, if we can keep up this momentum, keep above this level, I would expect us to make our way back to the highs there at 2.148. And maybe even higher to the wick of the COVID high, which is over there on the left as well. So I do still see more upside for pound NZD. I do think we'll probably start to see a nice bullish trend forming, take us back to the highs. However, at the moment, we are approaching some resistance here. So as you can see, we were kind of consolidating over here on the left. This was a big level of resistance, which we are approaching. So hopefully this level can actually send us to the downside, see a bigger retracement for some buys later on. Let me remove that level. We all know it's there, and possibly a retest of that kind of neckline of that double bottom pattern. So essentially looking for price to create the double bottom, break the neckline, retest it, and then be on our way. So that's kind of my thought process. Again, perhaps there might be some sales on the way down, because again, that's not a small move. You know, 287 pips. It's a pretty big move, but essentially from the higher time frames, I've built that kind of story, that narrative, that I'm expecting more upside. So I'm not really interested to try and take advantage of some short-term sales, or rather just play with that bias and keep pushing that way. So wait for the market to retrace and then get into and get into my opportunities. But with pound NZD, I'm definitely bullish so far unless something drastically changes. And looking for the retest of this level here at 2.05820. So yeah, I do see more upside. Again, targets can just be back to that same resistance. No need to try and go for the home run, but of course that is a possibility for you. But yeah, looking for some retracements next week for pound NZD and some buys around 2.05820. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I've been bullish on this one, expecting more upside, but we've been failing to break through such an important key level on the daily time frame, this recent swing high. We've had a few attempts trying to break through, but nothing really prominent that shows that the market is showing good signs of bullish momentum and the bullish trend. We did break through a couple times to see some higher highs, but essentially we failed to clear that original high the market created, and we tested it a few times before it looks like the market is starting to break underneath. So what I'm looking at next week is if we can really pull away to the downside, kind of essentially say to us, okay, we've tried to break through the level multiple times, we failed, now we're going to reject it in reverse. Now I'm waiting for a nice kind of confident move to the downside telling me that information, and then simply looking for pullbacks back into the recent swing low. I think that's the most calculated, logical position to take next week for CAD Yen. If we do see that down move, then simply looking for some break and retest somewhere, so another lower high, looking at 1, 2, 3, because we essentially got like 3 equal highs here. So more or less, triple top, market failing to create new highs. Now we're looking at break of structure, some lower lows to capitalize on the next lower high and a push back down into where we came from, that strong support level. So this is a bit more of a counter trend position because again, markets had a really hard time trying to break through this resistance here. A few attempts trying to break above that level, but essentially we have failed, and we're starting to see some confident bearish candles to the downside on the daily chart as well. So I'm looking at price returning back to this level of support. Buys do not look good, so buys don't look good anymore. I was looking for some buys this week. I did say if we can clear the high there, looking for some break and retest, and some buys back into the high there up at 111 or just above 111. However, after the price action we've seen this week, the triple top, market starting to clear some lows, failing to break for that 109,500 resistance. Sales are looking more attractive candle by candle, but of course, we'd like to see at least one move to the downside before looking for any pullbacks to actually short, and targets pretty no-brainer back down to the price swing low around 108. So that will be the plan next week for CAD Yen, looking for break and retest of 109, yeah, pretty much 109, and some shorts back down to 108 next week. Okay, so pound USD up next. Now the price action for this particular pair is pretty similar for euro in terms I'm still expecting price to reach back down at these lows here. Again, everything is still pretty bearish on the higher time frames. Big break of structure, taking out some important key lows on the daily chart as well. I'm anticipating that this move here is just a pullback. This bullish move here on the full H daily is just a pullback for the market to be on its way again. And also similar to Euro USD, we're also kind of trading in another bearish channel here as well. If you connect the main swing points, 1, 2, 3, let me just highlight them, 1, 2, 3, and possibly if we can come up, retest the high there as well. Again, looking at a nice double top into this area, could be seeing a fourth around 1.232. We also are rejecting a nice critical swing low here on the left. If I use the horizontal ray, you can see this was a big swing low point, big move to the upside, now acting as resistance over here, and possibly if you can see a move to the upside here next week, could be a nice place to position yourself short to capitalize on a nice double top, and simply just a continuation of that trend, coming to a strong area of confluence, pretty safe stop loss again, and looking for a push into the prior low. And again, if we do see price break through this area, that to me is starting to show that, okay, maybe pound USD is going through a reversal, or maybe a bigger retracement on the higher time frames, and buy is actually looking like the better bet to go forward. Same thing for Euro USD. If we break through those areas of confluence, kind of the same type of pattern, same type of price action we're looking at. So if you do break through that area of confluence, that tells me that buys are coming back in very strongly. We're starting to print some bullish structure, low, high, low, higher low, higher high, So at that point, I will be looking for buy positions, or at least not looking to sell the market anymore. So if I do see something like this next week for pound USD, that's when I'll look to change my bias. But at the moment, still pretty confident with the shorts. We do have a very nice area of confluence here, which would be nice to short. And again, pound USD is pretty bearish, so you may not even see such a move. If the market is going to continue its bearish trend, you may be seeing even some shorter pullbacks into resistance up here. We may not see the full move into that area of confluence, although that would be a nice place to short. Might just see a test of resistance and then a sell-off as well. So keep an eye on that if you're really focused on pound USD. For me, myself, I do like the confluence up there, so that's where my eyes will be focused on. But yeah, in terms of the bias, still looking at more downside, and I do think there's still a good chance we will take out these lows eventually, or at least come back to retest them. So yeah, more downside for pound USD next week. Maybe an up move first though, just to get some retracement, and then looking to short around 1.23 next week. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD's been a little bit choppy this week. I did say I'm bearish coming into the week, and I am still bearish on the pair. However, we're starting to be quite choppy now, failing to break through highs, failing to break through lows, although we did have a pretty nice breakout when we last talked about pound CAD on last week's analysis. However, since then we've had a pretty corrective pullback, and now the market is retested this area a few times. We were looking for this area here for some shorts. We have reacted there a few times, but essentially haven't really pulled away. And the last time we did have a nice down move, the market essentially held that support level. So pound CAD for me is starting to look more like consolidation as we progress, as more candles print. So I would kind of wait for at least one more bearish leg to the downside before considering to short. So you've seen a nice push here. If we can see a repeat of that, breaking the lows here, giving us some lower lows to work with and also some lower highs, that would be fantastic. Then we can look for some retest here, maybe a retest of the low if we have a big move to the downside. So if we get a big push down, we can look at the retest of this low for some shorts. You know, at least at this point, we've got a bit of a bearish trend to work with, and we're looking to kind of continue this big impulse. So simple impulse, correction, impulse. So that's kind of what I'm looking for pound CAD. However, of course, at the moment right now, we're kind of just moving sideways, and we just had a pretty strong rejection of this low here as well. So the fact that I'm looking for a move to the downside like so is looking less unlikely with that strong rejection. So with pound CAD, I'm still bearish in the market. Like I said, looking for impulse, correction, impulse. However, as long as you kind of move with this corrective nature, especially between these two levels, I'm just going to be sitting on the sidelines waiting for a bit more development. You know, like I said, there are other pairs that look a lot better to trade next week. And of course, if you want to find out which pairs I'm interested in, make sure you are in the Telegram. Each week I do post my 5 top pairs for the week ahead. You know, the aim of the game is not to trade everything and anything, it's just to trade something that's very high quality all the time. So pound CAD for me can become high quality if we do start seeing market break to the downside, some lower lows, lower highs, get some nice bearish momentum come back in again, then yeah, 100% that is a nice quality position. At that point, we're seeing momentum on the high time frames with this big impulse. Now we're seeing bearish momentum on the low time frame, so we get that synchronicity coming back into play again. So that looks like a good trade, but at the moment we kind of are just moving sideways. And again, nothing is 100%. We could also break to the upside as well and have a bigger move to the upside, a bigger retracement if pound CAD wants to. So this could be a nice trade on a break and retest as well. So with pound CAD in this kind of gray area here, I would just kind of stay put, just keep monitoring pound CAD, not trying to commit one way or the other because it's a bit 50-50 at the moment in time. But if you do start seeing some convincing break of structure, some convincing breakouts, then we can be looking at retests of the low here and of the high there, 1.67300 and also 1.65600, and these will be a lot more convincing trades to take. In terms of targets, we've got a nice low to target there. In terms of the buys, we've got a nice low to target here as well. Broken support wasn't really retested, so that could be a nice place to buy in towards. So that's kind of my analysis going into next week for pound CAD. Okay, so now on to pound yen. So pound yen's just been moving sideways this week. Again, respecting resistance, respecting support equally as well. So again, kind of choppy to work with the price action in there. Coming into the week, I did favor some shorts, retesting this area here for a move to the downside back into 180, I believe, into this level here. So this is what I was looking at coming into the week, because we did see a big kind of fake out to the upside. So I was expecting a retest continuation. We did see a glimpse of that. We did see a nice move, but essentially the market failed to break for that support. And ever since we failed to break for that support early in the week, Tuesday, the market has just been kind of up, down, up, down, up, down. So difficult to work with pound yen since then. And I'm kind of just waiting for the next kind of big break. And as time progresses, I'm actually starting to shift my bias back to the bulls again, looking at how the market is developing. I am looking at possibly a big inverse head and shoulder. I'm again looking at this possibly the next higher low for the next swing to the upside into 186. And let me just highlight the inverse head and shoulder quickly. So the inverse there, left head, then possible right shoulder. Not the cleanest pattern in the world, but still kind of fits the mold. So if you can start seeing price break out the consolidation to the upside, a higher high would be much appreciated as well. And then simply some pullbacks and retests. This is going to be a nice level to retest now if we do see a confident breakout. And looking to capture the next higher low, 1, 2, 3. Possibly get some nice confidence coming into these areas here as well on a breakout. This looks like a nice confident position to take, because we've got numerous time frames that are bullish, monthly, weekly, daily, all still showing characteristics of a bullish trend. 4H, if you do start breaking to the upside, now we've got some bullish structure to play with on the 4H as well. And then simply looking at some pullbacks into an area of confluence, retest some structure, get your confirmation around 182.745. In terms of targets, we could look for the home run back to the highs there at 186.500. It all makes perfect sense to me. So pound yen starting to turn bullish, but of course the break to the upside is crucial to actually start looking for some pullbacks to buy. But I will be bullish next week. But first, we do need to see that breakout, and then we can look for some retests on 182.745 next week. Okay, so over to gold. So gold has been in something else this past couple of weeks. Crazy momentum. Again, we spoke about this V-shaped pattern last week. Impulse to the downside, impulse to the upside. Typically with these V-shaped patterns, we do expect to see the market start trending to the upside. That's kind of what we've seen this week. Again, minimal retracement. Price kind of moves sideways for a couple of days, as we can see with that bearish candle in the doji, and of course momentum straight back into the market, and then we start flying to the upside. So gold has been exceptionally bullish, and actually as things stand, I do think there probably is more upside to be had. Again, there's a lot of momentum at the moment, but from a technical standpoint, it does look like we are going through a reversal from this bearish structure. I wouldn't say it's confirmed just yet, because we haven't actually had a break of structure. This is still kind of the major point I'm looking at. This is where it sent us to the downside, possibly could see a big move to the downside as well. If we do break through this 1980, and I think it's pretty straightforward for us to come back into 2050, 2060, maybe all-time highs as well. So 1980 for me is a very crucial level, which if gold breaks with a confident candle closure, I'll be expecting just more upside all the way back to the high there. So for next week for gold, since we have just seen a big wick to the upside, and of course price hasn't broken through that level yet, I do think there is some downside naturally to just see some retracement, because we've been so bullish over the past couple of weeks. Naturally do expect some retracement at such a big level. Again, a lot of people who are buying gold probably looking to take profit coming into these areas as well. So naturally retracement looks likely. Again, I'm not looking to short gold at all. I would anticipate retracement, but it's nothing that I'm looking to trade myself. However, some buys off a retest at this level, that looks quite attractive. So if you can see some retracement down into this area, possibly some buys back up again into that same resistance, then maybe if you get the breakout, then we can really see gold rally 2050, 2060, maybe all-time highs as well. So drop into the 4H time frame, essentially just looking for a retest of this level here, 1950. Then from here we can probably position some nice longs, take advantage of a nice retest of momentum in the market, and profit around 1980. I probably wouldn't be too optimistic and try and push it through that level, since it's such a strong level. But if you do see a breakout, then again, looking to follow that momentum to the upside. So that is the plan next week for gold. But first, we'll like to see some retracement, and some buys from 1949. And if we get the break and retest, 1980 as well. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was exceptionally bullish this week. I was not expecting this for Bitcoin. I was looking for a price to sell off, but Bitcoin proved me wrong. Big move to the upside, breaking through this prior support level, which was acting as pretty well, as resistance pretty well. Nice rejections a few times, but essentially Bitcoin has broken through and is looking pretty bullish since then. So with Bitcoin, I have to admit, I'm not fully convinced with the upside in Bitcoin at the moment. The price action is just so choppy. We've had a lot of impulsive momentum a while ago, but since then the market's been very corrective and failing to break through the highs here as well. So it's actually just kind of a big consolidation. So if you do see a big breakout through 31k, maybe I might change my mind a little bit. But in the meantime, for Bitcoin, buys back up to this level look pretty high probability. Again, seeing that big push to the upside, breaking through some structure. If we can see some pullbacks and essentially continue with this higher highs and higher lows Bitcoin has been printing, this looks to me like a solid buy opportunity to take it back into the high at 3,800, 31k-ish. And then we can see what Bitcoin does next, because like I said, in the higher time frame, it does start to look like Bitcoin has just been ranging. Successful retest of the low. Of course, we've already retested the high a couple of times. We could just see Bitcoin kind of collapse again to the downside if we see a big rejection. But for now, in terms of next week, kind of looking to play with the momentum over the past few days there, looking for some pullbacks. There's a good chance we'll probably come back to the high now that we have snapped through this level here. So next kind of big target is that 31k-ish, this level here. And then we'll see what happens with Bitcoin from there, because yeah, looking at the daily chart, it's kind of just range bound really. If you get a big breakout, then yeah, maybe we can see a nice bull market again for Bitcoin. But yeah, some pullbacks, some retest of, what is this, 28,600, and some continuations back to 31k will be the plan for next week for Bitcoin. And last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is Euro AUD. So Euro AUD probably will make the top of my watch list going into next week. I really like the price action of this one. From a top-down perspective, we can see a very confident bullish market structure on the higher time frames. We're seeing higher highs and higher lows. In fact, we've been seeing that for quite a while now if I really zoom out. So you can see the confident market structure we're seeing on the daily chart. And now we're starting to see that emulate on the lower time frames and the 4H as well, because we have been bearish, and this just looks like a retracement that the market is now finished and getting ready to continue back its path to the upside. So in terms of the target, simply looking at price coming back to the swing point on the daily chart, I would also watch out for this area here as well. You can see an excessive amount of wicks here. The market's had a hard time breaking through that resistance. We're not too far away, so this could make up for a very nice target for next week. If you're looking to swing the trade a bit more aggressively, then you do have that big 1.7 level up there. But for myself, going to next week, definitely am looking at buys. If I can get the retracement I'm looking for, a retest of this high would be much appreciated. See a nice down move, and then again looking to position myself long on a retest of this confluence. You can see just the kind of a textbook reversal here, inverse head and shoulder. Now the market is creating some new highs, so this was the inverse head and shoulder there. Now of course we snap through the neckline, so now looking for a retest of it to now go long and probably just target the highs there. I don't think I'll be too greedy and try and push the trade too far. Again, if I can get like nice 1 to 3, 1 to 4 into this area, I'll probably call it quits coming back into that level. But from a top-down perspective, a lot of synchronicity between the major time frames. And if we can see a pullback, we can ride this bullish momentum and again target the highs there or the swing highs at the top. But yeah, UAD for me is looking very high probability next week. The only thing is that the market is quite bullish right now, so there is that probability we might just continue up without retracing. We already had a couple nice pullbacks, so we may not see the pullback I'm looking for. But of course, again, I'm not a fortune teller. All I have to do, position myself where I want to be in the market, find my confluences, and simply wait for the market to come to me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, fantastic. We can capitalize on these opportunities. So we'll wait and see if we get that pullback, but essentially that is what I'm looking at for next week. Buys off 1.66455 and targets around 1.68615. And yeah, guys, that summarizes the analysis going into next week. Some real quality positions going into next week. If you do want to see my top 5 watch list for the week ahead, make sure you do check out my Telegram. I post that every Sunday. But guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you do drop a like and subscribe if you have enjoyed it. But nonetheless, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all next week.